ambition. He rebelled, changed sides, betrayed blood, and paid for it with his life. Richard learned a lesson, a brutal one. Family does not always mean trust. Power does not always mean safety. And loyalty is only real until someone offers more. From that moment, Richard began watching everyone. Smiles were measured, promises were weighed, and every oath sounded like a lie waiting to happen. But when Edward died suddenly, everything collapsed, because Richard was no longer simply a loyal brother. He was now the guardian of a child king, and standing between the crown and a hungry court filled with enemies. This is the moment critics say Richard changed. From loyal soldier to calculating survivor. Did he seize power out of greed or desperation? Or did he simply understand a truth that others ignored? That in England, trust could get a king killed. And soon, it would. London held its breath. A child was meant to be crowned. Edward V, too young to rule, too important to fail. Richard became protector of the realm. His duty, protect the crown, protect the boy, protect England. But enemies moved first. Powerful nobles gathered around the young king, whispering, scheming, preparing to rule through him. If Richard hesitated, he would be removed, or worse, killed. So he struck, calm, controlled, efficient. The boy king and his younger brother were escorted to the Tower of London, a royal fortress, a palace, a prison. And suddenly, England began to whisper, "Where are the boys? Why can't anyone see them? Why are the windows always closed?" Some said Richard was securing the succession. Some said he was removing a threat. Others said he was destroying the last obstacle between him and the throne. Then, something happened. The princes disappeared. No funeral, no announcement, no explanation, just silence. And silence is dangerous. Rumor filled the vacuum. Fear took shape. Stories spread. Richard, the uncle, had done the unthinkable, or so the world believed. But history is not always kind or honest, because nothing was proven. No body was shown. No confession recorded. Only suspicion. Only politics. Only power. Yet the damage was done. A king who trusts no one soon finds that no one trusts him. And Richard, now crowned, would never sleep peacefully again. Because when a ruler gains power through fear, he must live with fear forever. And in England, betrayal was never far away. Power wins a crown, but trust keeps it. Richard had the crown, but no trust. And in medieval England, that was a death sentence. Because loyalty here was a currency, and it could be spent or stolen fast. One man broke first. The Duke of Buckingham, Richard's closest ally. Trusted, favored, rewarded. Then suddenly, enemy. Why? Ambition, money, ideology, fear, or a promise from Henry Tudor. Across the sea, no one truly knew. But rebellion ignited. Castles turned. Banners rose. Priests whispered treason. England trembled. Richard moved fast. No hesitation. No mercy. The rebellion failed. Buckingham was captured and executed. A warning, written in blood. But warnings create fear, and fear creates distance. Richard stood more alone than ever. Nobles smiled, and lied, and waited, because now they saw this king could fall. And on the edges of Europe, a patient hunter watched. Henry Tudor, exile, outsider, last hope of the rival dynasty. He saw a kingdom cracking. He saw a king losing allies. He saw an opportunity, and he began to sail home. Richard felt it. Pressure, paranoia, a kingdom turning cold. So he tightened control, trusted fewer, watched everyone, punished rumor, rewarded loyalty. But loyalty built on fear does not last. And slowly, quietly, the circle around the king began to shrink until Richard truly was what history remembers: a king who slept with one eye open because he knew one truth: someone was coming for his crown, and soon they would come for his life. The storm finally broke in a quiet English field. Bosworth, August 1485. Morning mist, trampled grass, spears waiting, hearts racing. Richard rode out in full armor, not hiding, not afraid, because if he was going to lose his crown, he would lose it in the open, face to face. Across the field, Henry Tudor stood, not a warrior king, not trained for battle, but surrounded by men who wanted Richard gone. The armies formed, steel flashed, drums beat, Then, war. Shield shattered. Arrows screamed. Mud soaked with blood. Richard watched the field. Eyes sharp. Jaw set. And then, he saw it. Henry. Separated. Exposed. One charge. One strike. And this war would end. Richard didn't hesitate. He lowered his lance. And rode. Straight through the battlefield. Straight into history. His knights followed. Hooves thundered. Men scattered. Richard smashed through Henry's guard. Cut down standard bearers. Even unhorsed a noble. So close. So close. To ending everything. People later said, he fought like a man possessed. Like a king. Who refused to die afraid. But then, the betrayal. Stanley's forces moved. Not for Richard, but against him. The same Stanley. Richard once tolerated. Trusted. Feared. Turned. Surrounded. Outnumbered. Hemmed in. Richard kept fighting. He refused to flee. Refused to surrender. His last words were said to be, a horse. A horse. My kingdom for a horse. But no horse came. Only blades. And Richard III, the last Plantagenet king, the last English king to fall in battle, died in the mud. Still fighting. Still defiant. His crown. Taken. His body. Stripped. Buried without honor. A king undone. Not by weakness, but by trust. Given to the wrong men. And a world where loyalty changed. With the wind. After Bosworth, England changed. Henry Tudor became king. A new dynasty. A new story. And Richard III became a villain. At least, that's how history wrote him. Plays. Poems. Whispers in courts. Richard. The twisted king. The child killer. The monster. But here's the problem. We still don't know if any of it is true. The princes in the tower. 2 young boys. Heirs to the throne. They vanished. No bodies. No proof. No confession. Only silence. Did Richard order their deaths? Did someone else? Were they already gone before he wore the crown? History gives us questions, not answers. What we do know is this. Richard lived in a world of plots, lies, and knives hidden in smiles. Trust was deadly. Kindness was weakness. And kings slept lightly, or not at all. Centuries later, his grave was found under a parking lot. Bones twisted, spine curved, but human, real, not a monster, not a myth. A man who fought, who ruled, who lost, and whose story was written by his enemies. So who was Richard III? Tyrant, tragic king, victim of history, or simply the last ruler of a world where crowns were won by blood and kept by fear, because power never sleeps, and sometimes neither do kings. If this story unsettled you, stay with us. Subscribe, because the next chapter shows what happened after the Plantagenets fell and how a new dynasty would change England forever when ambition met destiny on a battlefield just like this one.